In that moment, I wasn't Wonder Woman. I was just a human being faced with a choice. Gal Gadot's words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of her recent experience. What choice did she face on that fateful day in Los Angeles? And how did her decision challenge our understanding of heroism? As we unpack this extraordinary event, prepare to question everything you thought you knew about courage, compassion, and the power of a single voice. The bustling streets of Los Angeles hummed with life, a symphony of car horns and chatter filling the air. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the sidewalks, where a diverse tapestry of humanity wove its way through the urban landscape. Amidst this sea of faces, one stood out, though not for the reasons one might expect. Gal Gadot, her dark hair catching the California sun, blended seamlessly into the crowd. The Israeli actress, known for her portrayal of Wonder Woman, walked with purpose, her eyes focused on some unseen destination. Suddenly, a piercing scream cut through the air, silencing the urban melody in an instant. Gal's head snapped towards the sound, her eyes narrowing as they locked onto the unfolding scene across the street. A woman, her face contorted in terror, struggled against a hooded figure. The assailant's gloved hands gripped the strap of her purse, yanking it with violent force. The woman's feet skidded across the pavement as she fought to maintain her balance, her free hand flailing in a desperate attempt to flag down help, eyes wide with panic. In that moment, something shifted within Gal. A surge of adrenaline coursed through her veins, propelling her forward like a bolt of lightning. The actress felt her heart racing, a familiar sensation from her days on set. But this was no movie scene. This was real, raw, and happening mere feet away from her. Without hesitation, she stepped off the curb, her stride lengthening as she crossed the street. Her focus narrowed to a singular point, the struggle unfolding before her. The mugger, sensing her approach, looked up. His eyes widened in recognition, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. For a moment, the world held its breath. The air crackled with tension as onlookers held their collective breath, wondering if the actress would channel her on-screen alter ego. But Gal's next move surprised everyone, including the would-be thief. Instead of launching into a series of acrobatic moves or delivering a thunderous punch, she simply stood her ground, her posture radiating calm authority. Her voice when she spoke was low and steady, cutting through the tension like a knife. "Hey," she said, her accent adding a layer of gravitas to the simple word. "I think you should reconsider what you're doing." The mugger's grip on the purse loosened slightly, his eyes darting between Gal and the growing crowd of onlookers. The woman, sensing the shift in dynamics, took advantage of the moment to wrench her purse free, stumbling backward into the protective circle of bystanders who had gathered. Gal took a step closer to the mugger, her eyes never leaving his face. "I see you," she continued, her voice pitched low enough that only he could hear. "I see your desperation, your fear, but this isn't the way." The hooded figure's shoulders sagged, the fight seeming to drain out of him. His hand, previously clenched into a fist, slowly uncurled. For a long moment, no one moved. The city seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see how this unexpected drama would unfold. Then, with a choked sob, the mugger turned and ran, disappearing into the labyrinth of side streets and alleyways. The spell broken, the crowd erupted into cheers and applause. Phones were held aloft, capturing the aftermath of the incident. But Gal paid them no mind. Instead, she turned to the woman who had been attacked, her eyes filled with concern. "Are you all right?" she asked, placing a gentle hand on the woman's shoulder. The victim nodded, tears of relief streaming down her face. As the police arrived to take statements, Gal remained by the woman's side, offering comfort and support. It was a display of compassion that went beyond the expectations of celebrity heroism, a moment of genuine human connection amidst the chaos of city life. As the flashing lights of police cars illuminated the scene, a hush fell over the crowd. What Gal did next would challenge everything we thought we knew about heroism. How could a single gesture redefine courage in the face of danger? The mugger's eyes darted from side to side, searching for an escape route. His grip on the purse tightened, knuckles white with tension. Gal Gadot stood before him, her presence filling the space between them. The onlookers held their collective breath, expecting a display of physical prowess from the actress known for her action-packed roles. Gal took a deep breath and spoke, her voice steady and clear. "I see you," she said, her eyes locked on the mugger's face. "I see your pain, your struggle. This isn't who you are. What's your name?" The thief's eyes widened in surprise. He had expected anger, threats, maybe even a fight. But compassion? Understanding? His grip on the purse loosened slightly, as confusion replaced the determination in his stance. Mike, he mumbled, almost inaudibly. Mike, Gal repeated, her voice warm with empathy. I don't know your story, but I know there's more to you than this moment. Whatever drove you to this point, it doesn't define you. You have the power to choose a different path. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the scene unfolded. This wasn't the confrontation they had expected. There were no flying fists, no dramatic takedowns. Instead, they witnessed something far more powerful, the transformative power of human connection. Mike's face cycled through a range of emotions, fear, anger, and finally a flicker of shame. His shoulders sagged, the fight draining out of him. I didn't mean to, he started, his voice cracking. Gal nodded encouragingly. I believe you, Mike. It's not too late to make this right. Will you let me help you? For a moment, time seemed to stand still. The bustling street faded away, leaving only Gal and Mike in a bubble of shared understanding. Then slowly, Mike's hand released the purse. It fell to the ground with a soft thud that echoed in the silent street. As Mike's defenses crumbled, Gal's compassion never wavered. She gestured to a nearby bench, inviting him to sit. The crowd watched in amazement as the actress who played Wonder Woman on screen embodied a different kind of hero in real life, one who fought with words and empathy rather than fists and special effects. For the next few minutes, Gal spoke quietly with Mike, her words too low for the onlookers to hear, but they could see the impact. Mike's posture changed, his head bowed in what looked like a mixture of shame and relief. Tears glistened in his eyes, catching the light of the now setting sun. As the police approached, Gal placed a gentle hand on Mike's shoulder. She spoke briefly with the officers, her words earnest and imploring. The crowd couldn't hear the exchange, but they saw the officers nod, their stern expressions softening slightly. One of the officers then approached Mike, speaking to him in low tones. To everyone's surprise, Mike stood up without resistance, allowing himself to be led to the police car. But before he was taken away, he turned back to Gal, his eyes meeting hers in a look of gratitude that spoke volumes. The onlookers, who had gathered expecting a sensational story of celebrity heroics, found themselves witnesses to a profound lesson in compassion and human dignity. As the police car drove away, the crowd began to disperse, many of them wiping away tears or engaged in hushed conversations about what they had just witnessed. Gal's approach had not only diffused a dangerous situation, but it also sparked a ripple of empathy that spread through the gathered crowd. Her actions challenged the very notion of what it means to be a hero, proving that sometimes the bravest thing one can do is to see the humanity in others, even in the most unlikely circumstances. The air crackled with tension as Gal Gadot faced the would-be thief. The bustling street held its breath, waiting to see what would unfold. Gal's eyes, soft yet unwavering, locked onto the man's face. In that moment, something shifted. The mask of desperation began to crumble under the weight of her gaze. "What's your name?" Gal asked, her voice barely above a whisper but carrying immense strength. The man hesitated, fingers twitching around the purse strap. "Mike," he finally muttered. Gal nodded, a small smile playing at her lips. "Mike," she repeated, as if tasting the name. Her words carried a warmth that seemed to envelop them all. Mike's grip on the purse loosened, his shoulders sagging. The crowd held its collective breath, sensing they were witnessing something profound. Gal's compassion was like the first warm breeze of spring, slowly melting the icy exterior Mike had built around himself. "You have a choice right now, Mike," Gal continued, her voice gaining strength. "This moment doesn't have to define you. It can be the turning point, the instant you decide to write a different story for yourself." A tear escaped Mike's eye, trailing down his cheek. The tough exterior he had worn like armor was crumbling, revealing the vulnerable human beneath. Gal's words had found to air mark, piercing through layers of pain and desperation. "I believe in second chances," Gal said, her voice carrying to every corner of the hushed street. "And I believe in you, Mike. The road ahead won't be easy, but it's a path worth taking." She extended her hand, palm up, in a gesture of both invitation and challenge. "Will you take that first step with me?" The world seemed to hold its breath. For a heartbeat, Mike stood frozen, caught between the life he knew and the possibility of something different. Then, with hands that trembled slightly, he placed the purse in Gal's outstretched palm. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. They had expected to witness an arrest, perhaps even a fight. Instead, they found themselves part of a transformation born of compassion. Gal's smile widened, genuine and warm. "Thank you, Mike," she said, her voice filled with quiet joy. "That was an incredibly brave thing you just did." As if on cue, the spell of silence broke. The street came alive with murmurs and exclamations, people turning to their neighbors to process what they had just witnessed. But Gal's focus remained on Mike, who stood before her, looking lost and uncertain. "What happens now?" Mike asked, his voice small and afraid. Gal placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Now we take the next step together. There are people who can help, who can provide support and resources. Will you let me connect you with them?" Mike nodded, a flicker of hope igniting in his eyes. As Gal guided him towards a nearby bench, the crowd parted, creating a path. The air hummed with a new energy, one of possibility and redemption. As the tension dissolved, a ripple of whispers spread through the crowd. Eyes widened in recognition as Gal Gadot turned to face the onlookers, her presence commanding attention even without her Wonder Woman costume. The actress's eyes blazed with an intensity that silenced the murmurs, and she was about to share a deeply personal story that would force everyone present to confront their own capacity for mercy in the face of wrongdoing. Gal's gaze swept across the sea of faces, each one a mix of curiosity and awe. She took a deep breath, her voice steady and clear as she began to speak. "What you've just witnessed isn't about heroism or celebrity," she said, her words carrying a weight that seemed to settle on every shoulder. "It's about something far more powerful, the courage to see the humanity in those who wrong us." The crowd leaned in, captivated. Phones were lowered, forgotten in the moment as Gal continued. "I faced my own struggles, my own moments of darkness," she confessed, vulnerability etching her features. "There was a time when I felt lost, unsure if I could ever make a difference in this world." She paused, her eyes misting with emotion. "But it was in those moments of doubt that I learned the true meaning of compassion," Gal continued, "not just for others, but for myself." As she spoke, the shaken victim of the attempted mugging stepped forward, her fear melting into a mixture of gratitude and wonder. Gal turned to her, voice low and soothing. "Are you all right?" she asked, genuine concern evident in her tone. The woman nodded, unable to find words as she recognized her defender. Gal placed a gentle hand on the woman's shoulder, addressing both her and the crowd. "What happened here today isn't just about stopping a crime. It's about breaking a cycle of pain and misunderstanding that traps so many of us." The actress's eyes shone with determination as she recounted her own experiences. "I've seen firsthand the transformative power of compassion," she said, "on film sets in war-torn countries and yes, even on the streets of cities like this one. It's not always easy, but it's always worth it." As Gal spoke, something shifted in the atmosphere. The air seemed to thicken with possibility, each word challenging the perceptions of justice and mercy that many held dear. She described moments from her travels, instances where a simple act of kindness had rippled outward, changing lives in ways she could never have imagined. "I remember a young girl I met in a refugee camp," Gal shared, her voice softening. "She had lost everything, yet she offered me her last piece of bread. That moment taught me more about true generosity than any Hollywood production ever could." The crowd listened, rapt, as Gal wove together stories of human resilience and the unexpected bonds that can form in the face of adversity. With each anecdote, she gently pushed against the boundaries of their preconceptions, inviting them to see the world through a lens of empathy and understanding. As she spoke, bystanders found themselves questioning their own capacity for compassion. A man in a business suit shifted uncomfortably, remembering the homeless person he'd ignored that morning. A teenager lowered her eyes, recalling the harsh words she'd spoken to a classmate. Each person in the crowd began to see reflections of themselves in Gal's words, recognizing the countless opportunities for kindness they encountered every day. Gal's voice grew stronger as she reached the heart of her message. "We all have the power to change someone's story," she declared. "It doesn't require superpowers or a costume. It simply takes the courage to reach out, to listen, and to believe in the potential for good in every person we meet." As Gal concluded her impromptu speech, the air hummed with a new energy, one of reflection and possibility. People turned to one another, exchanging glances that spoke volumes. Strangers who had stood shoulder to shoulder in stunned silence now found themselves engaged in quiet conversation, sharing their own stories of unexpected kindness or moments when they wished they had acted differently. The scene began to disperse, but the impact of Gal's words lingered. As people drifted away, there was a palpable sense that something had changed. Perhaps it was the way a businessman helped an elderly woman with her groceries, or how a group of teenagers invited a solitary peer to join their conversation. Small acts, barely noticeable, but carrying the seeds of something greater. As the crowd dispersed, Gal sought refuge in a nearby cafe. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, but it couldn't mask the scent of her past. Her fingers wrapped around a steaming mug, eyes fixed on the swirling liquid within. For a moment, she wasn't Wonder Woman or a silver screen icon. She was just Gal, grappling with the echoes of her past and the weight of her present. The Israeli military. It changes you, she said, her accent thickening with emotion. It shows you sides of humanity you never knew existed. In her mind's eye, she was back in her homeland, a young woman in olive drab. We were taught to be strong, to be warriors, but the real strength came from moments of compassion in the midst of conflict. Her fingers tightened around the mug as she recounted a particular day. There was this checkpoint, she said, her voice catching. A Palestinian woman was in labor. The rules said we couldn't let her through, but sometimes you have to listen to your heart, not your orders. We got her to a hospital. That day, I learned that true heroism often means breaking the rules to do what's right. My grandfather, he was a Holocaust survivor, Gal continued, her voice softening. He never talked much about those dark days, but his silence spoke volumes. It was in his eyes, you know? The pain, the resilience, the unwavering belief in the goodness of people despite everything he'd been through. A tear traced its way down Gal's cheek as she recounted a rare moment when her grandfather opened up. He told me once, Gally, that's what he called me, in the darkest times, it's the small acts of kindness, the moments when someone sees your humanity, that save us. Her voice trembled. Those words have guided me more than any script or director ever could. These experiences had shaped her response to the mugging incident. When I saw Mike, something in me shifted, she admitted. For a split second, I was terrified. I'm not really Wonder Woman, you know? A soft laugh escaped her lips. But then I remembered my grandfather's words, and I knew I had to try to see Mike's humanity. I made a choice in that instant, not to fight, but to connect, to see the person behind the act. Her eyes flickered with vulnerability and determination. It was scary, I won't lie. But in that moment, I wasn't Gal Gadot the actress or Wonder Woman the superhero. I was just me, a person trying to reach another person. When I looked into Mike's eyes, I saw pain, desperation, but also a flicker of something else. Shame, maybe, or hope. And I knew that if I could just hold on to that, maybe we could both walk away from this changed. People see me as this symbol of strength and justice, she said, frustration creeping into her voice. But real strength, real justice, it's about having the courage to be vulnerable, to reach out even when you're scared. Gal's fingers traced the rim of her now cold coffee mug. After it was all over, I couldn't stop shaking. It hit me then, how close we'd come to a very different outcome. Her eyes met those of her listener. But that's the thing about compassion. It's not always easy. It's not always safe. But it has the power to change everything in an instant. As Gal's words echoed beyond the cafe's walls, a city held its breath. Los Angeles, known for its glitz and glamour, found itself grappling with a moment of raw humanity. The incident on that bustling street had planted a seed, and in the days that followed, it would grow into something no one could have predicted. Within hours, Gal Gadot was trending, accompanied by grainy cell phone footage of the confrontation. As the initial shock wore off, the conversation deepened. Social media platforms buzzed with personal accounts of times when compassion had changed lives, while local news stations played the footage on loop, each time finding a new angle to explore. The city awakened to a transformation. Coffee shop conversations buzzed with debates about justice and mercy. In boardrooms and classrooms alike, people found themselves reflecting on their own capacity for compassion. At the University of Southern California, Dr. Maria Hernandez, a renowned criminologist, held a packed lecture hall captive. What we witnessed, she explained, was a radical departure from our typical understanding of conflict resolution. Ms. Gadot's actions challenge us to reconsider the very foundation of our justice system. Across town at a community center in Compton, a town hall meeting stretched late into the night. Residents shared stories of unexpected kindness, and times they wished they had extended it to others. A young man stood up, his hands shaking slightly as he spoke. I've always thought being tough was the only way to survive, he admitted. But now I'm wondering if maybe there's another way. As the days passed, small acts of kindness multiplied like ripples in a pond. A woman in Silver Lake left care packages for the homeless. High school students in Pasadena started a mentorship program for at-risk youth. Even in the notoriously gridlocked traffic, drivers were spotted letting others merge with a wave and a smile. The identity of Mike, the would-be mugger, remained a mystery, protected by the veil of anonymity Gal had granted him. But whispers of his story began to circulate, revealing a shift in perspective. People were beginning to look beyond the label of criminal to see the human being beneath. In the plush offices of a Hollywood talent agency, Gal's representatives fielded an avalanche of interview requests. But Gal remained surprisingly quiet, declining most offers. Her silence only fueled the public's fascination, leaving room for everyone to project their own interpretations onto her actions. As the week drew to a close, Los Angeles found itself at the center of a national dialogue. News outlets from coast to coast picked up the story, using it as a launching point for broader discussions about criminal justice reform, mental health support, and the role of empathy in modern society. In a poignant twist, several police departments across the country announced new training initiatives focused on de-escalation and community engagement. Chief Rodriguez of the LAPD explained, "We're not saying every situation can be resolved with words, but we owe it to our officers and our communities to explore every possible avenue for peaceful resolution." As night fell over Los Angeles, the city pulsed with the echoes of Gal Gadot's compassion. Her encounter with Mike had sparked a transformation, igniting a wave of kindness that swept through streets and neighborhoods. In coffee shops and boardrooms, on buses and in parks, stories of empathy blossomed. The air thickened with possibility as people spoke in hushed tones about second chances and the power of being truly seen. For a moment, the sprawling metropolis felt like a small town, united by a shared glimpse of our common humanity. As the last light faded, a question hung in the air. How will you choose compassion today?